Hello and welcome back to the Exist Better YouTube channel. Today we're doing a case study. I have a series of videos. If you check out my playlist, The Psychology of Liberalism and Conservatism, I've basically been building a framework of identifying and understanding both the liberal shadow and the conservative shadow. And I talk about polarization, how that happens, and how it's entirely about the individual shadow and how people with the same shadows, they get together, right? So if you want to learn all about that, I have a whole playlist you can check out. When we're talking about the political spectrum, what you're actually doing is you're polarizing to either masculine development and identification or feminine development and identification. But you might not actually be developing if you're just polarizing yourself to one extreme or the other. And that's what we see happening between each of these groups. They become more and more polarized, they understand each other less and less, and they fight with their own shadow more and more. So there's more and more unwillingness to even understand that they have a shadow and that they have a subconscious underbelly to them that directly reflects the other side. So in this video, we're going to do a case study. And sadly, that case study is going to be on the comedian J.P. Sears. We're going to go through some very classic examples of the conservative shadow and how it tends to display itself. And I'm calling it the conservative shadow, but really what's actually in shadow is the feminine. So that might be kind of confusing if you're new to this. What they're expressing is masculine, and what's actually in shadow is their feminine side, the entire feminine half of them that they are insisting doesn't exist. One more disclaimer, I just want to say that the conservative shadow can get very dark and very scary. When you go far enough into polarization toward the masculine, you actually become a tyrant and you become a dangerous person. We see this most obviously with dictators, extremely polarized to the masculine and not any sort of positive masculinity, obviously. J.P. Sears is not anywhere close to that. I don't think he's like a dangerous person or a tyrant. So this is not like a personal attack. It's just to draw awareness to what is genuinely psychologically unhealthy. And frankly, I'm tired of every person I meet, not every person I meet, but the majority of people being so polarized that you can't even have a conversation with them or a relationship with them without it turning into like, are you on my side, or are you one of these bad guys, these ignorant people? Are you one of the sheeple? It's really insane, and it needs to be called out and discussed openly what's really going on here. Without further ado, we begin.
When it comes to gay marriage, my hunch is that a number of years from now, we'll look back and we'll carry a societal sense of shame, and we'll look back and question, wow, how could we ever take away people's rights to marry? How could we discriminate against them because of their sexual preference?
People make the mistake of treating binariness like it's a binary concept, but it's not. And it really hurts me when they think it is. Now, you might be a boy, you might be a girl, or you might be trans.
You might be an idiot, but you probably want to be more of an idiot. And instead of leaving your idiot potential to chance,
are you keto or are you an idiot? Personally, I've been in ketosis for 5 years straight.
Okay, we need to talk about something called flip-flopping. So for example, we have someone who's a pushover and a people pleaser. They're going to go through their healing process, and they might naturally start to become very selfish, self-centered, everything's about them, stingy, they don't want to share, they don't want to do things for other people because they're going through a healing process, right? They're done with the pushover and they're finding a new way to be, but they don't know how to be balanced yet. They don't know what it's actually like to not be a pushover and to not be extremely selfish and self-centered. So they do this, I call it the pendulum swing. Teal Swan calls it the healing trap. You start over here, you go to the opposite extreme. This is exactly what JP has done. He started off as this like hippie liberal guy who believes everyone should be able to do what they want to do, what's right for them. And now he's done a total pendulum swing into anti-abortion. He's correct, possibly, in identifying that his first perspective was based on propaganda. He's very big on talking about liberal propaganda. The problem is that he now doesn't see that his current perspective is also built on extremes and propaganda.
I think there's evil, tyrannical people in this world, controlled by Satan if I'm being honest, and I am, who want to keep the population of the world small so it's easier for them to control everybody, and they want to destroy the nuclear family so people grow up weaker and are therefore more controllable.
And that population that has that belief currently is the more masculine and conservative skewed people. So again, he's just flip-flopping from one type of propaganda to another type of propaganda, and we don't see any actual growth happening. This is the pendulum swing. So ideally, what we would see in someone like this is them coming back to center and just balancing out what he calls boring would be actually a state of psychological health and integrated masculine and feminine understanding of the world. Now, I will say this, to credit him, I think it's good to see someone pendulum swinging because it means something's happening. When people are very stagnant and they do not grow, you don't see any change. They stay what they were from day one and nothing ever changes or grows.
I don't like to outsource my thinking to any group. I like to think for myself. But I got an abortion, so I'm empowered now. As a man who obviously could get pregnant at any time, I just feel that it's important that my voice is heard on the matter.
Almost every reference he's made has been to the stupidity of the feminine, right? So it's like, it's so clear that his issue with this is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if he were to just look in himself and see what is it that's causing that violent rejection of that more liberal perspective, he really thinks, and this is again very typical of conservative ideology, he really thinks that the reason he's angry and the reason he hates it so bad is that they're stupid and that they're bad. But people being stupid and doing the wrong thing and being immature should not upset you this much unless it has to do with your shadow. So people being stupid and people being immature should not trigger you. And if it does, it's about you. Period. This is what shadow is about. It's never any different. If you're getting super triggered, and you can go back in his videos and you can see the progression very clearly. Each of his videos, it's more and more and more and more about this. And it actually drowns out the comedy completely because it's become very clear that this is a serious fight.
Getting mad every time you hear someone say something you don't like doesn't make you empowered. It makes you unstable.
Okay. So again, it's just so he won't let go of this, it's like stupid woman, naggy woman thing. Again, very common with the conservative perspective. So this is another thing you'll see. They inflate their ego around this. You'll see his ego just seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger the further he pushes away feminine emotionality, right? Those stupid feminists, they're always nagging. I'm not like that, I'm not like that, I'm not like that. Look how great I am, look how great I am, is basically what the ego is saying. I would generally agree that abortion is not necessarily like an empowering thing that we should all celebrate. Ideally, people wouldn't be getting them. Ideally, people would be in situations where that never comes up. So it's not that he doesn't have any good points, it's that he doesn't see what's happening to his consciousness. A sign of growth for someone who's skewing conservative is to come into an understanding of what liberal people are actually experiencing and where their thoughts and beliefs are coming from. So obviously, a liberal person who is pro-abortion, what they have come from their background, their emotional experience in life has been, you don't matter. What you need doesn't matter. Your rights don't matter. Everything you say is just stupid. You should just grow up and like have a baby you don't want. Obviously, anyone in that position who's been like smothered with that judgment and accusation, obviously they're going to develop in a way where they're all about personal rights and getting their freedoms back because they feel that has been lost. Their perspective has been demonized. And so in order to remedy someone who's lashing out about that, you would give them the benefit of the doubt and rehabilitate them to say, like, your perspective does matter, your life matters, and your freedom matters. And you are not just a walking emotional meltdown because you're stupid, right? But this is actually what JP believes. He really truly believes that people are just fools. He is full of scorn about his own superiority. And so when you present yourself in that way, you are always going to get an equal and opposite reaction. So what he's doing with his behavior is actually making it so that those feminist people stick around and they get more radicalized and they get more crazy.
I think abortions are evil, and there's evil lunatics out there that's evil. That there's nothing but pure evil behind this.
This, I love that he said this because I have seen this word evil. Liberals don't believe in evil. This is another big difference between the two groups. Liberals are not about evil. They don't like the word. They think it's archaic. They think it's religious. Using of the word evil always comes from the conservative perspective.
I also believe that if you're in your heart and you truly ask for it, God, yourself, and your baby's soul will forgive you.
So he's also talking about God now, which kind of confirms my suspicions that his beliefs are rooted in a bit of like traditional religion. Again, this is a common thing for conservatives. Even really, really intellectual conservatives, I've seen them kind of just still kind of base everything on these religious ideals. When I did my video on what's missing from Jordan Peterson's psychology, he's someone who leans conservative in more of a way of being, not in a political way, I don't think. Even he is big on this idea of like evil. Even as someone who like you would assume might be like an atheist or like not very religious because he's so intellectual, still has this fascination with evil.
I probably spent my whole life trying to understand what evil was and, more importantly, what might be done about it.
I think every individual skews a bit one way or the other. They skew a bit feminine or they skew a bit masculine or maybe a lot. It is that person's responsibility to develop themselves in the direction of integration. Integration means seeing characteristics within yourself that you don't identify with, but that are a part of you, they are in shadow, bringing those traits up and developing them, and stop demonizing them. When you stop demonizing those parts of yourself, you no longer need to project onto the other people. You can just say, oh yeah, they haven't like really developed very much yet, and I'd prefer not to hang out with them because they're, I don't enjoy it. Instead of this meltdown, constant trigger, constant projection that is just such a blatantly obvious mirror of your internal world and your internal psyche, it's exhausting to watch these people. There is so much better available for human beings, and they don't know it. A lot of humans who are on Earth right now, they think that this is as good as it gets. They think that if those other bad people would just go away, those people who aren't like me, if they would just go away or stop and become more like me, then every problem in America would be solved. This is an absolute refusal of emotional growth. So when you look at America and see all the types of growth we've had, technological, financial, scientific and rational, the one thing that just seems to continue to get worse is emotional development. No one is ever willing to do it. No one knows how to do it, and it's a complete non-priority to every person in all of these bullshit groups. Emotional development is practically unheard of in this country, in this world. The irony of the conservative shadow is that this group of people needs to grow a pair of balls. Exactly what they're always telling everyone else to do is what they won't do themselves. They're so big on responsibility, and they will not take any emotional responsibility for themselves. And that's why they perpetuate this bullshit cycle and this cute little song and dance that they have with the liberals. The conservative shadow doesn't know that it's in a massive superiority complex in relationship to the feminine.
Nope, my thinking definitely isn't in line with what they're told to think, nor is it in some boring middle ground either. It's more in like a straight line that pierces into a different dimension. How's it feel to be super certain of yourself while you refuse to grow?
So their behavior kind of gives the liberal side of things no other choice but to not be in relationship with them. Now, they don't have to lash out and like fight with them all the time, but they are putting the liberal side in a position of total unsafety, and they cannot be in relationship at all. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe. If you want me to try to do an equal version of this sort of case study breakdown thing, but for the liberal shadow, please let me know in the comments if there's someone well-known and prominent in the media who I can do that on, and I will do that. Again, this is not being done from like a place of scorn or hatred. It's just, I kind of can't believe people's unawareness. It's mind-blowing. And I'm tired of it, and I think it just needs to be talked about, for better or worse. Maybe it'll upset some people, ruffle some feathers, but at the end of the day, people are already behaving so dysfunctionally that I don't think me adding my voice to the conversation is really going to do that much damage. If you're interested in learning more about shadow work or doing shadow work yourself, I offer that. You can check out the links below, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.
What are they actually against? I would say themselves. When we project our shadow onto someone else, it's us taking things we despise about ourselves, plopping that whole thing on someone else, projecting it onto them, which is a very convenient way to not own what we don't like about ourselves. It's just convenient to blame it on someone else. You're the unacceptable one, which means I don't have to own what feels unacceptable in me. Carl Jung once said, all wars would come to an end if people would own their shadows.